Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. Wasn't on live yesterday. I was very tired, so I had to get some rest. And I just finished teaching a 2-hour online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So if you missed a 2-hour online course, our 2-hour online course, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and you can still register for it. Okay. Normally it's on Tuesdays, but I was too tired yesterday. I could not do it. And Monday when I did a show Monday, I was dragging doing the show Monday. So I just had to, I went to bed early last night. But we deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And as soon as you register, you can watch classes 1 through 3. It's an 8-week, 16-hour online course that I teach. Okay, so on today's show, there's so much going on, and I'm trying to combine. I had a show laid out for Tuesday, and I'm trying to combine some of that information with some new information that has just taken place. So the House of Representatives has passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. The House of Representatives passed that act today, Wednesday. So we're going to talk about that. It's a big article from the Washington Post about it. And now goes to the U.S. Senate. It's going to be harder to get it passed in the Senate. But we're going to have to push and call our members of the U.S. Senate. And if you live in areas that have Democratic members of the Senate, you're going to have to call some of those idiots. And we're going to have to fight like hell to get it passed. If we get 50 votes in the Senate, then the tiebreaker would be Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. This is why every vote counts, and this is why the U.S. Senate is extremely important. So we'll talk about this. House of Representatives passes the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We'll break that down and what that means. Then also, we've been dealing with the voter suppression that's taking place in Republican-dominated state legislatures. There have been 253 bills that Republicans have pushed in Republican-dominated state legislatures to suppress voting. Okay, and this is and Georgia is leading the way. Former Confederate state, Georgia is leading the way, and it is a result of African Americans and Hispanics, but especially African Americans, getting out and voting in the 2020 election. And we see in Georgia, Georgia went for Joe Biden, but also we see in Georgia, Republicans lost 2 Senate seats in Georgia, Reverend Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. So the Georgia House on Monday, Republican lawmakers in the Georgia House of Representatives pushed through a bill rolling back voting access after African Americans turned out in a big way in November 3rd and the January 5th election. Republican lawmakers in Georgia muscled legislation through the state house on Monday that would roll back voting access over the objection of Democrats and civil rights groups gathered at the Capitol to protest. The bill comes after record turnout-led Democratic wins in Georgia's presidential election and 2 U.S. Senate runoffs. House Bill 531 passed the lower legislature, the House, by a vote of 97 to 72. It now goes to the state Senate for more debate. So we'll talk some about that. Then we see that on Tuesday, FBI Director Christopher Wray testified in front of the U.S. Senate. And Christopher Wray says Capitol attack was domestic terrorism. We know that, but he confirmed Capitol attack was domestic terrorism. And he gave more insight into the January 6th Capitol attack But he also debunked a lot of the lies that Republicans have been telling and are still telling. He debunked a lot of those lies. Okay, so we'll discuss that also. That's very important. FBI Chief Christopher Wray says Capitol attack was domestic terrorism, but he repeatedly rebutted claims that Antifa activists attacked the Capitol. Antifa stands for anti-fascism. Anti-fascism. Why would the anti-fascism people who are against fascists interrupt a democratic process? A joint session of the House of Representatives in the U.S. Senate. Why would anti-fascism people interrupt a joint session of the House of Representatives in the U.S. Senate that's certifying the votes to get a fascist out of office? That doesn't even make sense. That's not logical. But neither are these conspiracy theorists who are pushing these conspiracies and trying to divert attention away from domestic terrorists. Speaking of domestic terrorists, we see as the Senate hearings continue today, DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, and FBI sent out warnings that groups discuss plans for another Capitol attack around March 4th. Okay, because originally up until the 1930s, up until the 20th Amendment of the 1930s, March 4th was the inauguration day. So a lot of these idiots believe that March 4th is going to be the real inauguration day, and Donald Trump is going to be inaugurated on March 4th. It's like, is your mother and father actually brother and sister? You're that stupid to believe these conspiracy theories? Where do these people come from? The FBI and Department of Homeland Security sent an alert to state and local enforcement agencies on Tuesday, March 2nd, warning of new potential violence at the state capitol, at the U.S. Capitol on March 4th. In a joint intelligence bulletin, the agency said domestic extremist groups have discussed plans to take control of the U.S. Capitol and remove Democratic lawmakers on or about March 4th, according to a senior law enforcement official who described the document to NBC News. The bulletin, titled National Capital Region Remains Attractive Target for Domestic Violent Extremists, DVE, Domestic Violent Extremists. Okay, these are a bunch of white supremacist domestic violent extremists. This is what they are. The bulletin, titled National Capital Region Remains Attractive Target for Domestic Violent Extremists, warned that, quote, domestic violent extremists or militia violent extremists have been emboldened by the January 6th attack and now pose an even bigger threat. We'll talk some more about this after the break. That's why the National Guard is still there at the Capitol, and they should stay there at the Capitol. Now, you have Republicans like Senator Ron Johnson, who was instigating the January 6th insurrection, wondering, so when they're going to take away the National Guard's people. Well, maybe when you stop lying. Maybe that's when they take them away. When the threats stop and you stop lying. Then also, we lost Vernon Jordan, on civil rights leader, civil rights activist Vernon Jordan, passed away at age 85, Tuesday, March 3rd. So we'll talk some about Vernon Jordan as well. All right, now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we do with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can sign up for the email newsletter there. We just sent one out before this show started. If you'd like to start the information, you can support the African History Network, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Okay. You can still register for the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understand the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. You can watch from around the world. We do the classes live, normally on Tuesdays. We did the class today because I was tired Tuesday. I went to bed early, but normally on Tuesdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do with thousands of years of history. I do with a PowerPoint presentation, video. We have video clips. We have book references, and we deal with what led up to the transatlantic slave trade starting. So it's regularly $130 on sale, $80. As soon as you register, you can watch the class we did today and last week's class. Also, last week, our guest speaker was Dr. David Imhotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. The First Americans Were African. Now, this is Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. I used that in the class tonight. But Dr. David Imhotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. So he was our guest speaker last Tuesday. Okay, I'm working to line up a guest speaker for our March 10th class. All right. Okay, so we're coming up here on a break. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. If you have a question or comment, when we come back, we're going to talk about the House of Representatives passing the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and what's in the bill and what this means. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
We all know the cannabis industry is headed toward an uprise in the past decade. What happens when there is a brand that brings this uprise in a blow? The cannabis industry welcomes her uprise. Hustle her hemp. Delivering excellence with pride is her watchword, and how you choose to embrace it makes it a priority. From cultivating rich cannabis into exquisite and tastefully finished CBD products to delivery, Hustle Her Hemp leaves no stone unturned. Hustle Her Hemp's mission is to empower women of color by building business and creating legacies, uniting beauty, health, and business. We are a pure definition of how we want the CBD industry to become in the future. While we are redefining innovation, we bring the same energy to improving the quality of life. Hustle Her Hemp is the new uprise.
Are you getting ready for fall or winter? We have the solution for all seasonal clothing needs. Kemeticwear.com is the go-to online source for Kemetic African fashion and lifestyle products with a contemporary twist. We're committed to offering unique styles reflecting our African heritage. Kemeticwear.com is inspired by KemeticScribes.com to influence our people in learning and showing pride. Please visit our website at Kemeticwear.com.
Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, President and CEO of JCW Computer Consulting LLC, a technology implementation firm with over 20 years of satisfying customers. We offer a full spectrum of industry top-tier branded services. We are an authorized partner or reseller for Lenovo, Zoom, T-Mobile, Microsoft 365 and Surface tablets, Google Workspace, Acer, Asus, Samsung, PCmatic security software, and many more. Our online store features laptops, Chromebooks, computers, printers, accessories, and software. Businesses, Take advantage of our free 1-hour Zoom tech consultation and know we offer top nationwide high-speed internet service providers, voice over IP, and cellular phone services. Home users, don't miss our current in-stock Chromebook inventory. Please visit us at jcwcc.com or call 215-879-6701.
Digital Dandelion's Technical Solutions works with businesses like yours to create an operations manual for your business, which is something many businesses don't have. According to AARP, more than 30% of small business owners are over 50 years old. Many business owners want to retire by selling their businesses or by passing their businesses on to their children. However, according to Forbes Investment Advisors, many retiring owners attempt to sell their businesses or retirement fail. You cannot sell your business without a business manual. Your children also cannot inherit your business because there is no way to run it. Your business does not have to die when you leave. Their business Bible products will give you the tools you need for a thriving business that can make you money even after you retire. Are you looking at increasing your business's annual revenue? Digital Dandelions can help you make at least $100,000 in annual revenue and expand your business. Speak with them today about solidifying your business. Visit digitaldandelions.com today and get a free 30-minute consultation. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. We are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. So right before the break, I was saying that the House of Representatives today passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And Washington Post has an article dealing with this. House passes expansive policing overhaul bill named in honor of George Floyd. So we're going to go to this here in just a second. Let's pull this up. Okay, so the House of Representatives on Wednesday passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, an expansive policing overhaul measure named after George Floyd, a 46-year-old African-American man killed by died after his Derek Chauvin's knee was on his neck for almost 9 minutes. And we know Derek Chauvin goes on trial in the next few days also. And let's post this up here. Okay. All right, let's continue. So the bill passed 220 to 212. 220 to 212 along mostly party lines, with two Democrats, Representative Jared Golden of Maine and Ron Kind of Wisconsin, voting against it. They need to be voted out of office. And one Republican, Representative Lance Gooden of Texas, accidentally voting for it. Okay, so basically no Republicans voted for this bill. So that tells you, if you're trying to figure out, okay, well, who is voting for policies that are beneficial for African Americans? Okay, look at the ones voting for policies that are against us. And most of these traitorous Republicans voted against certifying the 2020 election votes. Also, there's 146 Republicans that voted against certifying the election. Now, soon after the vote, Jared Golden of Maine tweeted, or Gooden, it's like they misspelled his name, tweeted that he had pressed the wrong button and had meant to vote no. He said he would submit a correction to his vote. Now, George Floyd's death triggered a national outcry for a systemic transformation of law enforcement, but the push for policing changes could not overcome partisan and election year gridlock in Congress, and the legislative efforts failed last year. So you got to ask yourself the question, 200 plus Republicans voted against the bill? But Republicans talk about how good their policies are for African Americans. You don't want justice and policing? I mean, these are legitimate questions to ask them. Not one Republican, the one Republican that voted for it said it was an accident. Okay, he said he accidentally voted for it. So no Republicans voted for it. Democrats were determined to try again as they control the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. The measure that passed the House last summer, 2020, on a 236 to 181 vote was reintroduced last month by Representatives Karen Bass, Democrat from California. She's a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, and Representative Gerald Nadler, Democrat from New York. Now, Representative Karen Bass said a profession where you have the power to kill should be a profession that requires highly trained officers who are accountable to the public. She said this during the House floor debate. Now, the legislation would ban, and let's flip over here, flip over to the screen share. So the legislation would ban chokeholds. Let's get this up. So the legislation would ban chokeholds and racial and religious profiling. That's why Republicans don't want to vote for it. It end racial profiling. Establish a national database to track police misconduct and prohibit certain no-knock warrants. It also contains several provisions that would make it easier to hold officers accountable for misconduct in civil and criminal court. This is another reason why the Republicans don't want to support it, because oftentimes it's the police unions support Republicans. Now, one proposal long sought by civil rights advocates would change qualified immunity, the legal doctrine that shields police officers from lawsuits by lowering the bar for plaintiffs to sue officers for alleged civil rights violations. Okay. Now, President Joe Biden praised the bill on Wednesday in a virtual call with House Democrats. The White House said Monday that it supports the legislation and that the president looks forward to working with Congress to enact a landmark policing reform law. Quote, to make our communities safer, we must begin by rebuilding trust between law enforcement and the people they are entrusted to serve and protect. The White House said, we cannot rebuild that trust if we do not hold police officers accountable for abuses of power and tackle systemic misconduct and systemic racism in police departments. Now, see, we dealt with this during the election because I shared with you the op-ed that Joe Biden wrote back in June 2020 for USA Today that dealt with tackling systemic racism in policing and the criminal justice system, things like this. Donald Trump didn't even want to admit that systemic racism exists. He didn't want to admit it exists in society or in policing. His second attorney general, William Barr, didn't want to admit systemic racism existed in policing at all. Well, how are you going to address the problem of systemic racism if you don't even want to admit it exists? See, this is what I was explaining to Simple Simon ass people during the presidential election that was stuck on stupid. This is what I was explaining to them. You can get something like this. Trump wouldn't sign a bill like this into law. Not only that, if you go look at his Vice President, Mike Pence, and Mike Pence, little spineless Mike Pence, came out today in support of Donald Trump. I mean, these people have no morals, no backbone, no testicles. I don't know what the hell is wrong with them. But anyway, Mike Pence back in 2016 on the campaign trail, during the first election, on the campaign trail, he said that he and Donald Trump think there's too much talk about implicit bias in policing. And we need to stop talking about it. How are you going to address implicit bias in policing if you don't want to talk about it? How are you going to address systemic racism in policing if you don't think it exists? Now we got to push this through the Senate. Joe Biden's waiting to sign this into law. Has to go through the Senate. You got a lot of white supremacists in the Senate, Republicans. Hopefully Joe Manchin of West Virginia will vote for this, because Joe Manchin needs to be voted out of office. He's a Democrat. He's a centrist Democrat. Sometimes he's more like a Republican than Democrat. He gotta go. Joe Manchin, he's gotta go. But hopefully he'll vote for this. But let's continue here. Gwen said, wow. Yeah, I'm trying to, dude, you got to understand politics. I'm trying to explain this to people. Okay, so Republicans argue that the legislation's federal mandates go too far and would weaken the ability of officers to do their jobs. Really? Oh, it goes too far. It's going to weaken the ability of officers to do their jobs. In a narrower proposal of their own last year, it was a weak proposal. Don't call it narrower. It was weak. It was pushed by the only black Republican in the entire Senate. Okay, spineless Tim Scott from South Carolina, who voted not to impeach Trump in 2 impeachment trials. Spineless Tim Scott. And is it any wonder? Is it any surprise that Tim Scott said he's going to vote against reparations in the Senate if a reparations bill comes up in the Senate? The only black Republican in the entire U.S. Senate said he's going to vote against reparations. I think Tim Scott sometimes acts like he's scared of his own shadow, just to be honest with you. Now, in a narrower proposal of their own last year, is a weak proposal. Senate Republicans left intact the qualified immunity standard. The legislation failed to advance in the Senate where it needed 60 votes to proceed. Okay, because you need 60 votes. Those are people don't understand. All these votes matter. The U.S. Senate is critical. The U.S. Senate confirms the president's cabinet. Okay, you saw what happened with Neera Tanden for Office of Management and Budget. Okay, little spineless Joe Manchin said he was going to vote against her. No Republicans are going to vote for her. There's only 50 Democrats in the House, Democrats plus 2 independents, because Senator Angus King and Senator Angus King and Bernie Sanders caucus with the Democrats. So you got 50 votes. But Joe Manchin ran astray. He said he didn't like some of her tweets criticizing members of the Senate. But you voted for almost all of the nominations of Trump. You don't want to talk about Trump's tweets? Now, ahead of the vote, GOP lawmakers assailed the legislation as a defund the police effort. You say this is a reform bill, and I say that's BS. Your own conference members have been advocating for defunding our local police officers, calling them names I cannot and will not repeat here today, said Representative Kemet, Republican from Florida. Now, I told you, defund the police is the wrong terminology. I told you that stuff's going to come back on you. You don't look. Talk about reduce responsibility, reallocate resources. When you start talking about defunding the police, it allows people to twist it too much. And defund the police means different things to different people. Some Black Lives Matter activists want to get rid of all police. Okay, you have to understand messaging. Republicans are better at messaging than Democrats are. And I have a background in sales and marketing. I'm telling you, I told you this stuff is going to come back on you. So you say this is a reform bill. I say that's BS. Your own conference members have been advocating for defunding our local police officers, calling them names I cannot and will not repeat here today, said Representative Kemet, Republican from Florida, who gave an impassioned floor speech about the wife of a first responder. But Democrats pushed back on the GOP claimed that the bill would hurt police financially or otherwise. Now, Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, Democrat from Maryland, said it would be an irresponsible policy to defund police, and we are not for that. Exactly. And Joe Biden ain't for defunding police. I talked about this back in June and July when Joe Biden came out with that op-ed talking about he's not for defunding police. I said, good, because ain't no way in the hell you going to win talking about defunding police. People don't seem to understand. Most black people don't even. There was a poll done. There was a Gallup poll done. Most black people weren't even for defunding the police. They want police to do their jobs. They don't want police brutality. They still want funding for mental health and education and all that stuff. You could do both. If you read the op-ed, and I'm gonna try to pull it up here. People need to go back and read this because we dealt with all this stuff on this show. If you go, read the op-ed that Joe Biden did for USA Today, because what happened was during the campaign, Republicans and Donald Trump were trying to label Joe Biden as a radical and defund the police, all this nonsense. Okay. And then they were showing pictures of riots in the street and things like this and said, this is what America is going to look like under Joe Biden. Well, that's what it looked like under Donald Trump. You're showing stuff taking place under Donald Trump. Yeah. Okay. So let's look at this right here. Now, this came out June 10th, 2020. Okay. Other people, now, most of these other people ran their mouths on social media. They ain't even talk about this. We showed this to you here. Okay. Let's go to this from June 2020. Everybody go read this. Okay. If this is your first time watching this show, this is somewhere where we actually read. This is from June 10th, 2020, during the presidential election. Biden, we must urgently root out systemic racism from policing to housing to opportunity. We must urgently root out systemic racism from policing to housing to opportunity. Federal dollars should not go to departments that violate people's rights or turn to violence as a first resort. But I don't support defunding the police. Now, we talked about this as soon as this op-ed came out in June of 2020. We talked about it right here on this show. He goes through and he breaks down how you need to have funding for mental health and education and all those other things. You need to have funding for all that stuff and then have proper funding for policing, but root out systemic racism in policing. He lays all this stuff out in this op-ed from June 10th, 2020. And then the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act follows what he was saying. And he's saying he's ready to sign it into law. But first it has to pass the U.S. Senate. You have a lot of Republicans in the Senate that don't want it to pass. So we got to push this through the Senate. And then in the 2022 election, a lot of these Republicans that are up for re-election, like Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, who voted against the Juneteenth bill a couple of years ago, I think it was last year, 2020. He voted against the Juneteenth bill under the unanimous consent rule. Okay. A lot of these people got to be voted out of office. These are obstructionists blocking bills that are beneficial to African Americans. So they have to be voted out of office. You're gonna let them stay in and abuse us like this with taxpayer dollars? That's not even logical. So we posted the link here. Most people haven't read that op-ed from June 10th, 2020. Go read it. Donald Trump didn't even want to acknowledge systemic racism existed. And his attorney general, his second attorney general, William Barr, didn't acknowledge systemic racism existed in policing. Okay, let's continue. Let's go back to Washington Post. Some of the stuff we may have to get to tomorrow. But we got to deal with this because this just happened. And this is important. This is an example of how elections have consequences. So Representative Steny Hoyer, House Majority Leader, Democrat from Maryland, said it would be an irresponsible policy to defund the police, and we are not for that. You can say it over and over and over again. It will be a lie no matter how well it serves your political purposes. They're saying we're not for defunding the police. The police need to be adequately funded. There need to be checks and balances to put checks on police. You have to root out systemic racism. Okay. Now, also, what's important to understand, the majority of control over policing is not at the federal level. It's at the state level because of the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which is why it's important to read and understand the U.S. Constitution. Okay, you can go to loc.gov, Library of Congress website, or archives.gov, National Archives, and read the U.S. Constitution. But majority of control over policing is not at the federal level, is not from the Department of Justice, is not from the president, even though there are some policies that could be put in place. There are some things that can be done at the federal level, but the majority of the control over policing is at the state and local level because of the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution that gives states rights. So you have to know who to go to get what it is you want, because a lot of people just marching and don't know who the hell to go to get what they want. Okay. Now, the House bill also faces the likelihood of a filibuster and other significant obstacles in the evenly divided Senate. Still, Representative Karen Bass, Democrat of California, said Democrats are full of, quote, renewed hope that this bill will be signed into law. Okay. The vote was originally expected to take place Thursday, but was moved up by House leaders after the Capitol Police warned that a militant group may be plotting to breach the Capitol. Donald Trump supporters. Democrats noted Wednesday that the consideration of the bill comes 30 years to the day after the Los Angeles police beating of Rodney King. They also underscored the urgent need for the federal government to address the issue of police reform. So Republicans are not pushing for police reform. Where's their police reform bill? They had a weak one last year when all the protests were going on. Where's their police reform bill? I haven't heard them talk about it. They're still talking about stop the steal. Where's their police reform bill? Now, incidents of police brutality create instability within communities, and the longer the federal government waits to act or delays in acting, the more instability we potentially have within communities, said a senior House Democratic aide who was not authorized to publicly discuss the issue. Okay. Now, the weather's getting warm. The George Floyd trials are coming up, and it's important the federal government send a message that it intends to act in this area and not delay. Now, jury selection in the trial begins March 8th, the trial of former officer Derek Chauvin, and he's been charged with second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter in the killing of George Floyd. So the jury selection begins March 8th in his trial. So read this. We'll probably talk about this some more on tomorrow's show. House passes expansive policing overhaul bill named in honor of George Floyd. All right. Now, this has to be pushed through the Senate. So it's not over. We're going to have to fight to get this through the Senate. Okay. Let's continue. All right, Shakita, we're gonna go to one of these clips here because we gotta move, but that was important. We gotta get to that. Okay, so FBI Director Christopher Wray testified on Tuesday in front of the U.S. Senate about the January 6th Capitol riot. We're gonna go to clip one, Shakita, saying that his department views what took place as domestic terrorism and that it has no place in our democracy. In his opening statement, he added that investigations are active in all but one FBI field office. Let's go to clip number one. Take it off of mute. Okay.
with a quick update on the investigation into the January 6th attack here at the Capitol. I was appalled, like you, at the violence and destruction that we saw that day. I was appalled that you, our country's elected leaders, were victimized right here in these very halls. That attack, that siege, was criminal behavior, plain and simple, and it's behavior that we, the FBI, view as domestic terrorism. It's got no place in our democracy, and tolerating it would make a mockery of our nation's rule of law. Rule of law, of course, is our country's bedrock, and it's our guiding principle at the FBI. That's why the FBI has been working day and night across the country to track down those responsible for the events of January 6th and to hold them accountable. We're chasing down leads. We're reviewing evidence, combing through digital media to identify, investigate, and arrest anyone who broke the law that day. And our greatest partner in this investigation has been the American people themselves, your constituents. Citizens from around the country have sent us more than 270,000 digital media tips. Some have even taken the painful step of turning in their friends or their family members. But with their help, we've identified hundreds of suspects and opened hundreds of investigations in all but one of our 56 field offices. And of those identified, we've arrested already more than 270 individuals to date, over 300 when you include the ones of our partners, with more subjects being identified and charged just about every single day. The FBI is committed to seeing this through, no matter how many people it takes or how long or the resources we need to get it done. Because as citizens, in a sense, we're all victims of the January 6th assault, and the American people deserve nothing less. Unfortunately, as you noted, Mr. Chairman, January 6th was not an isolated event. The problem of domestic terrorism has been metastasizing across the country for a long time now, and it's not going away anytime soon. At the FBI, we've been sounding the alarm on it for a number of years now. I've been sounding the alarm about domestic terrorism since, I think, just about my first month on the job when I first started appearing up on the Hill. And I've spoken about it in maybe a dozen different congressional hearings. So whenever we've had the chance, we've tried to emphasize that this is a top concern and remains so for the FBI. In fact, we viewed it as such a critical threat that back in June of 2019, under my leadership, we elevated racially and ethnically motivated violent extremism to our highest threat priority, on the same level with ISIS and homegrown violent extremists, where it remains to this day. Now, I'm sure we're going to cover a lot of ground today, but let me make one thing clear. The FBI will not tolerate agitators and extremists who plan or commit violence, period. And that goes for violent extremists of any stripe. As I've said many times, we do not investigate ideology, but we focus on acts of violence and violations of federal law. And when we see those, we will bring to bear the full weight of our resources, our experience, and our partnerships. And when domestic violent extremists use explosive devices, when they attack government facilities and businesses, when they assault law enforcement officers, when they use violence to interfere with the lawful operation of our government, they should expect the FBI to come knocking on their door, no matter where they try to run. Now, of course, these are not the only issues the FBI is focused on every day, and as I hope we'll discuss in more detail, this morning we confront a wide variety of threats in countless other forms, like the solar winds intrusions, which we're working to investigate and counter with our intelligence, law enforcement, and private sector partners, both here and abroad. Not to mention a huge range of other cyber threats from nation states, criminals, and toxic combinations of the two, like the vast, unrelenting counterintelligence threat from China, and of course the alarming threat of violence towards law enforcement officers, a threat that's especially close to home here in the Capitol. The attack on January 6th not only resulted in the injuries of over 100 law enforcement officers, but also the tragic death of U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick in the line of duty. The threat of violence to law enforcement is also deeply personal for us at the FBI. Just 1 month ago today, 2 of our special agents, Laura Schwarzenberger and Dan Alfin, were tragically killed in the line of duty, and 4 more of our agents shot or wounded, all while serving a search warrant. And I can tell you that there is nothing more devastating, more heartbreaking than the loss of our own. The loss of 2 special agents who not only bravely did what I consider one of the hardest jobs in the FBI, investigating crimes against children, but who were also each parents of young children themselves, of their own, a wife, a husband, and cherished members of their communities. And I know a number of members of Congress, including a number on this committee, reached out and offered their condolences and offerings of support. And I want you to know how much that means.
All right, thank you. Okay, so read the article from NBC News. We just posted the link here. FBI Director Christopher Wray repeatedly rebuts claims that Antifa activists attacked Capitol. He said no evidence of Antifa. He repeatedly shot down claims by Trump allies there in the Senate that Antifa activists took part in the Capitol attack. He said, quote, "We have not to date seen any evidence of anarchists, violent extremists, or people subscribing to Antifa in connection with the 6th, January the 6th. Okay. We also have this news here, and we're going to go to we're going to try to squeeze in this clip here dealing with Vernon Jordan, Shakita. So we'll go to clip 6 and some of this other stuff we have to get to tomorrow night. The NBC News and Washington Post are reporting that the House of Representatives has passed a sweeping voting rights ethics bill. Although it passed the Democratic-controlled House, the Senate filibuster may stand in way of some of these votes were going to take place on Thursday, but the sense of the threat of domestic terrorists attacking the U.S. Capitol again, Donald Trump supporters, they're holding these votes on Wednesday night. So the House on Wednesday passed the For the People Act, a sweeping bill that seeks to make changes to campaign finance, voting, and ethics laws. The bill would expand access to the ballot box by creating automatic voter registration across the country, restoring the voting rights of the formerly incarcerated, expanding early voting, and modernizing America's voting system. When you restore voting rights to the formerly incarcerated, that's about 5, almost 6 million people who've had their voting rights taken away. Okay, I think maybe a third are African Americans, or maybe 40%, something like that. That's huge. You restore voting rights to incarcerated, they're gonna vote these Republicans out of office. The House measure passed 220 to 210, with one Democrat joining a Republican House member to vote against the bill, and indeed be voted out of office. That Democrat. None of the Republicans voted for this. Almost no Republicans voted for this bill. What's wrong with them? The bill would also strengthen oversight of political lobbying and campaign finance by preventing members of Congress from serving on corporate boards and requiring presidents to release their tax returns. Oh, they don't want tax returns released. Okay, this bill will require presidents to release their tax returns. Okay, no wonder the Republicans don't want this. They want Trump to run again. All right, we'll talk about this some more on tomorrow's show. So check this out. This is big news here. It still has to pass the Senate. And there's a lot of Republicans in the Senate that don't want this to pass. Well, most Republicans in the Senate don't want this to pass. Okay, let's squeeze this in. Vernon Jordan, civil rights activist and legend Vernon Jordan, passed away on Tuesday, March 2nd. Here is some history on Vernon Jordan. Let's go to this clip, Shakita.
Civil rights lawyer Vernon Jordan has died. Jordan led a remarkable life, breaking down barriers, first as an activist and later as one of the most influential power brokers in Washington. Here's CBS's Michelle Miller.
Vernon Jordan's smooth counsel was sought after by business leaders and presidents alike.
none more notable than the president who tapped him in 1992 to lead his transition team.
I'm honored and pleased to serve my friend Bill Clinton and my friend Al Gore,
which ultimately earned him the nickname First Friend. But Washington wasn't all that defined him. The Atlanta native son helped integrate the South right out of law school when he escorted the first 2 black students into the University of Georgia in 1961.
We of the Urban League movement.
He led the National Urban League, fighting for economic equality for the black community, a passion a failed assassination attempt by an avowed white supremacist couldn't diminish.
Somebody has to be in a boardroom. Somebody has to be in the streets. Somebody has to be in a courtroom.
Jordan lived those words. Although never a courtroom lawyer, he served on the boards of dozens of corporations, but he never forgot his roots.
The next generation has to take the baton and keep going. And if we keep going, we're going to get where we should be.
Vernon Jordan, dead at the age of 85. Michelle Miller, CBS News.
All right, we'll talk some more about Vernon Jordan on tomorrow's show. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching for a few more minutes. We're going to squeeze in this story about Georgia House passes GOP bill rolling back voting access. We'll talk about that for a little bit. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Stay tuned for Pastor Greg Davis, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. Okay, stand by, everybody. Let me post the information here. I forgot to post it here. You can register for the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. You can still register for it. As soon as you register, you can watch the class we did today and last week's class. All the sessions we do the sessions live, but they're all recorded. You can go back and watch them over and over again. Okay.
For 25 years, the Black History 101 Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black History mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid El Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought-after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip-hop, and race relations. Dr. Khalid was named among the change makers for NBC Universal's Erase the Hate campaign and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. He recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Mobile Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid Hakim directly at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197, or visit their website at blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. That's blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com, bhistory101@yahoo.com. Visit 4glossygirls.com. That's the number 4glossygirls.com, and follow them on Instagram at 4glossygirls.
Digital Dandelion's Technical Solutions works with businesses like yours to create an operations manual for your business, which is something many businesses don't have. According to AARP, more than 30% of small business owners are over 50 years old. Many business owners want to retire by selling their businesses or by passing their businesses on to their children. However, according to Forbes Investment Advisors, many retiring owners' attempts to sell their businesses for retirement fail. You cannot sell your business without a business manual. Your children also cannot inherit your business because there is no way to run it. Your business does not have to die when you leave. Their business Bible products will give you the tools you need for a thriving business that can make you money even after you retire. Are you looking at increasing your business's annual revenue? Digital Dandelions can help you make at least $100,000 in annual revenue and expand your business. Speak with them today about solidifying your business. Visit digitaldandelions.com today and get a free 30-minute consultation.
We all know the cannabis industry is headed toward an uprise in the past decade. What happens when there is a brand that brings this uprise in a blow? The cannabis industry welcomes her uprise. Hustle her hemp. Delivering excellence with pride is her watchword, and how you choose to embrace it makes it a priority. From cultivating rich cannabis into exquisite and tastefully finished CBD products to delivery, Hustle Her Hemp leaves no stone unturned. Hustle Her Hemp's mission is to empower women of color by building business and creating legacies, uniting beauty, health, and business. We are a pure definition of how we want the CBD industry to become in the future. While we are redefining innovation, we bring the same energy to improving the quality of life. Hustle Her Hemp is the new uprise.
With blackbusinesstee.com, the messages are clear and meaningful. Keep your business in the black and out of the red. Mind your black business, know your numbers, and plan strategically. Black Business Boss, lead your industry. Support black business, encourage, patronize, and uplift one another. blackbusinesstee.com currently has products sold in Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles, with proceeds returned to the black community. They have a wide selection of hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, hats, sweatshirts that support black-owned businesses. Visit the website blackbusinesstee.com. That's blackbusinesstee.com.
Let's squeeze in this last story here. So, Associated Press, and I have a larger story that we'll have to deal with tomorrow. But Associated Press has a story here. Georgia House passes GOP bill rolling back voting access. Okay, and they on Joanne Reed's show on what date was that? On March 1st. She dealt with the GOP is using the big lie to push new voting restrictions. The GOP is using the big lie to push new voting restrictions. Okay, we're going to go to this clip here in just a minute. Let's see here. Yeah. So the Republicans are using the big lie to promote voting restrictions across the country. The Brennan Center for Justice recently reported that state legislatures are currently considering more than 250 bills restricting voting access in 43 states. And we know that Georgia is at the forefront of this because of what happened in the 2020 election.
Yesterday at CPAC, the disgraced, twice impeached former president once again promoted the big lie, an election he claims was stolen on the basis of specious claims of fraud in cities with lots of black and brown voters. The same lie that fueled the attack on the Capitol. And now the big lie is being weaponized by Republican-controlled state houses across the country to soothe not just Orange Julius Caesar's fragile ego, but to do quite explicitly what the insurrectionists demanded by giving state-level Republicans the power to exclude any voters who don't tend to vote their way, and even to undo election outcomes and hand the presidency or presumably any office to whoever they want. Dozens of state houses have already unleashed a tidal wave of voter suppression legislation, with Arizona and Georgia moving particularly aggressively after both turned blue in 2020 on massive turnout from black, brown, AAPI, and young voters. Today, Georgia's GOP-controlled House passed a draconian bill restricting drop boxes, requiring more ID for mail ballots and limiting weekend early voting. The Brennan Center reports state legislatures are considering more than 250 bills, restricting access in 43 states. The Republicans also have an equally insidious chance to hamper voting rights writ large through the courts. Tomorrow, the Supreme Court hears arguments involving two Arizona laws centering on a critical remaining provision of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, broadly prohibiting discrimination against racial minorities in voting. The court gutted a key section of the law, Section 5, 8 years ago by declaring unconstitutional a portion deciding which states with a history of racial discrimination need federal approval to change their laws. But the U.S. Congress has a very real chance to protect our democracy from the assault with the For the People Act, a sweeping overhaul of election and ethics laws, and its companion legislation, the John Lewis Voting Rights Restoration Act. The For the People Act is so important to the Democrats' agenda, it's dubbed H.R. 1 and S.R. 1 in the Senate. The House is expected to vote on the legislation this week.
Okay, so H.R. 1 is what just passed today. H.R. 1, okay? So that let's go back to NBC News. All right, hold on. Where's the article from NBC News? Okay, House passed a sweeping voting rights ethics bill. Okay, the For the People Act. That's H.R. 1. Okay, that's just what passed. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act still has to pass. But if we look at this article here from, this is from the Associated Press, and I want to pull this up here. Georgia House passes GOP bill rolling back voting access. Okay. And this is from March 1st, 2021. So the Georgia House passed Bill 531. This is in direct backlash to what took place in the 2020 election. You see activists here marching. Okay. So Republican lawmakers in Georgia muscled legislation through the state house on Monday that would roll back voting access over the objection of Democrats and civil rights groups at the Capitol to protest. All right, just a second here. Okay, so the bill comes after record turnout led to Democratic wins in Georgia's presidential election and 2 U.S. Senate runoffs. House Bill 531 passed the lower legislative chamber by a vote of 97 to 72. It goes to the state Senate for more debate. Now, the far-reaching bill would require a photo ID for absentee voting, limit the amount of time voters have to request an absentee ballot, restrict where ballot drop-off boxes could be located and when they could be accessed, and limit early voting hours on weekends, among many other changes. One of the other changes is that they want to make it illegal to give people food or water who are standing in line. Okay, because that's something that a lot of the African-American activist groups were doing, but they were giving food and water to anybody standing in line. They didn't ask people their religious their political affiliation or who they were voting for or anything. Now, it is one flood of election bills being pushed by GOP lawmakers across the country this year that would add new barriers to voting. Republicans say the measure is needed to restore the public's confidence in elections after former President Donald Trump and his allies relentlessly pushed false claims of voter fraud. So because they kept lying about false claims of voter fraud, then they want to destabilize confidence in the elections. So then they say we need all these new voter restrictive laws, these voter restriction laws. We need all these new laws to restore voter confidence. But you were the one lying, destabilizing some people's confidence in the voting process in the first place. Now, House Bill 531 is designed to bring back, quote, House Bill 531 is designed to bring back the confidence of our voters back into our election system, said Republican Representative Barry Fleming, the measure's chief sponsor. They're lying. Now, Democrats say the legislation furthers Trump's lies and would disproportionately affect voters of color. It's pathetically obvious to anyone paying attention that when Trump lost the November election and Georgia flipped control of the U.S. Senate to Democrats shortly after Republicans got the message that they were in a political death spiral, Democratic Representative Renita Shannon said, quote, and now they are doing anything they can to silence the voices of Black and brown voters, specifically because they largely powered these wins. Okay, this is a direct backlash to African Americans and Hispanics coming out and voting in the 2020 election, and then also that January 5th runoff election for Reverend Raphael Warnock's Senate seat. This is direct backlash to that. Now, on the February 26th edition of Roland Martin Unfiltered, I was a panelist on his show. I'm usually a panelist each Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. He interviewed Representative Shannon from the State House Representatives, Representative Shannon and Representative Cannon, both African American women. Tomorrow's show, I'll play an excerpt of that interview because they're talking about what the Georgia State Legislature was doing. Okay, now when he interviewed him, that was last Friday, so that was before the vote took place. But they were talking about the treachery of what they're doing in the Georgia State Legislature. So this is why I say you always have to be prepared for that white backlash to take place. Whenever there are periods of advancement of African Americans, there's always white backlash to come to put you back in your place, to take you back, to take away the gains that you've made. Now, dozens of protesters gathered outside the Capitol on Monday in opposition to the bill, chanting "Say no to voter suppression and protect the vote." Today, before the eyes of this country, Georgia is poised to pass some of the most egregious, dangerous, and most expensive voter suppression acts in this entire nation, rolling back years of hardball progress and renewing our reputation for discrimination, the Reverend James Woodall, president of the Georgia NAACP, said at a rally. Elena Reeves, the president of the Clayton County Young Democrats, was among the protesters. She said, "We take one step forward, and then, these legislators are trying to bring us 2 steps back. They're trying to take you back into 1964, before the 1965 Voting Rights Act came into existence. They're trying to take you back to 1964 and 1963. Later on Monday, the State Ethics Committee approved a Republican-backed bill that would limit who can vote absentee in Georgia to those 65 and older, people with a disability, and people who will be away from their precinct on Election Day. The bill would do away with no excuse absentee voting, adopted by a Republican-controlled legislature in 2005. It could soon move to the full Senate for a vote. Now, see, this is the hypocrisy. Republicans have been using no excuse absentee voting in Georgia. Okay, it was no excuse absentee voting was adopted by a Republican-controlled state legislature in 2005 in Georgia. As long as white people were using it, as long as white Republicans were using it, it was fine. This past presidential election, African Americans started using it. And we got Joe Biden into the White House, defeated Donald Trump in Georgia, and then won 2 Senate seats. Now, the same bill that Republicans introduced in 2005, Now they want to change it to restrict who can vote absentee. It was all right when white Republicans were using the vote absentee, no excuse, it was fine. Now African Americans learn the law, and then we start using it. Hispanics learn the law, they start using it. Now all of a sudden it's a problem. Now, we got to change it. Oh no, we have to restore integrity in the election. See, this is always the white backlash that takes place when African Americans make advancements politically. This is why we have to understand political self-defense. And we have to understand the concept of being able to protect gains that were made and vote these jackasses out of office who are doing harm to us, trying to take us back. They're doing it through politics, the laws, policies. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. The legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, the adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. They're trying to take us back with the laws at the Georgia State Legislature. Okay, so read this article here from the AP. Georgia House passes GOP bill rolling back voting access. This is from March 1st, 2021, Ben Nadler and Anila Yoganathan. Okay, and we'll talk some more about this probably on tomorrow's show. But this is deep what's taking place. There are 253 bills that Republicans have in state legislatures now to restrict voting rights. Now, there's about 700 bills that Democrats have in state legislatures to expand voting rights and make it easier to vote. But Republicans are lying, talking about restoring integrity to voting, and they're still pushing the stolen election myth and all this nonsense. This is what's taking place. Okay. All right, look, hey, if you like this type of information, also you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Click on the yellow donate button. We're here 6 days a week, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time, and Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. All right. When you donate through Cash App, be sure to type in $ the AHN Show, SHOW, the AHN Show, and it'll say Michael, and they have my picture there. The AHN Show. Be sure to type that in. All right. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.
Black Bees products are a collection of natural, organic, personal care products with an appreciation of nature and bees. Our philosophy is without bees, we have nothing. We are honoring our Nile Valley ancestors who understood the importance of bees. Black Bees created a high-quality, natural, organic personal care line that would be affordable to everyone. We hope you try and enjoy our Black Bees products line and come back and visit us at blackbeesproducts.com.
With blackbusinesstee.com, the messages are clear and meaningful. Keep your business in the black and out of the red. Mind your black business. Know your numbers and plan strategically. Black Business Boss, lead your industry. Support black business. Encourage, patronize, and uplift one another. BlackBusinessTea.com currently has products sold in Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles, with proceeds returned to the black community. They have a wide selection of hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, hats, sweatshirts that support black-owned businesses. Visit the website blackbusinesstee.com. That's blackbusinesstee.com. Soul Natural Beauty Products offers organic, plant-based skin and hair care products that will rejuvenate skin and naturally grow and thicken hair. Their whipped shea butter can heal or restore damaged skin cells to prevent hyperpigmentation and skin breakouts. All products are made with organic plant-based ingredients. Their maximum hair growth oil is fortified with organic herbal extracts and undeniably proves that Mother Nature knows best. It thickens, lengthens, softens, and conditions all types of hair. They even guarantee hair improvement within 90 days or a full refund. Their all-natural 24-hour deodorant leaves the body smelling fresh without sweating for up to 24 hours. It does not stain fabric, goes on smoothly, and has a refreshing lavender and frankincense aroma. It can be used by men, women, and even children. Place your order today at soulnaturalbeautyproducts.com. That's soulnaturalbeautyproducts.com, and follow them on Facebook at Soul Natural Beauty Products. Intuitive Design Clothing is an online accessory store that sells one-of-a-kind signature statement pieces for men and women. They also specialize in fashion consultations, closet organization, and decorating small spaces. Are you looking for a statement piece for a special affair, or would you like to add some select pieces to your ensemble of accessories? If you're looking for something different, definitely contact Kathy Norman, owner and CEO of Intuitive Design Clothing. Visit their website, intuitivedesignClothing.com. That's intuitivedesignClothing.com, and you can email her at info@intuitivedesignClothing.com. Intuitive Design Clothing is where every entrance is a grand entrance. Have you tasted the world famous No Frowny Brownie yet from the Pink Bakery? If not, what are you waiting for? They're vegan, gluten-free, and free of the big 8 allergens. While eating their No Frowny brownies, the fabulous Miss Tabitha Brown said they were very good. Very good. And you know, if she says that, they are. The Pink Bakery is the first black-owned, big 8 allergen-free baking mix company. Go to thepinkbakery.com, that's thepinkbakery.com, to order their No Frowny Brownie Mix today. Yaya Rule is a line of African-inspired apparel catered to the black community. The pieces include t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, jackets, dresses, skirts, activewear, bags, and other accessories and home decor. This brand offers a revived way for men and women to wear their black pride and honor their African heritage anywhere at any time. This apparel line is for anyone, whether you are working in the corporate world, are an entrepreneur, or an artist. Their selection will allow you to casually let your pride shine or dress it up as wanted. It is for those who have already embraced African fabrics and for those who are just getting introduced to them. Reclaim and experience a part of our culture with rich and colorful African prints. The clothing line and the accessories are available right now starting at $17.99. For more information,